spoilers alert, as we're going to be watching Quazii's Final Fantasy XIV story recap video pre A Realm Reborn to Shadowbringers.
This video is meant to be a short story recap from everything before A Realm Reborn to the end of Shadowbringers. With Endwalkers just 2 weeks away, I could use a refresher on the story, and I figured I might as well share it on the channel too, along with relevant footages of my Final Fantasy XIV playthrough. I won't go into the unnecessary details, only recapping the key turning points in the story, plot lines that will be useful in Endwalker. Spoilers up to Shadowbringers ahead. I've also marked the chapters for each expansion in this video, so you know when to stop or skip to in this video. Our story started in the 6th Astral era, where the mighty Garlean Empire tried to invade the city-states of Eorzea. The Garleans discovered the planet's moon, Dalamud, can be used as a weapon if they pulled the weapon down to crash upon Eorzea. Crazy? Yes, I know. As a result, Eorzean city-states united to form grand companies and allied with one another. This led to the eventual defeat of one Nail Vandanus, the person who led the Dalamud plan. However, Nail Vandanus' defeat did not halt the fall of the moon. As the Grand Companies and Garlean Empire squared off on the battlefield, Dalamud descended, a scene that is now immortalized in the trailer you see here. Dalamud then disintegrated to reveal the dragon Bahamut from within. Bahamut was imprisoned in Dalamud a long time ago by an ancient civilization known as the Elegant Empire. Coincidentally, they were the ones who also created the moon Dalamud itself. Bahamut went on a rampage, destroying everything in its sight, culminating in what the world knows as the 7th Umbral Calamity. Louisoix, a Sharlayan scholar and the leader of the Circle of Knowing, later renamed the Scions of the 7th Dawn, was the man who saved the players of Final Fantasy XIV. In the cinematic, he transported players through space and time to safety, more specifically to where and when Final Fantasy A Realm Reborn 2.0 is supposed to start. Following us into 2.0 included key characters from the Circle of Knowing, including Thancred, Minfilia, Ida, Urianger, Papalymo and Y'shtola, folks who have come together to form the Scions of the 7th Dawn. Moving on to A Realm Reborn. Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn kicked off with a time skip 5 years after Louisoix transported you through space and time. Soon after, the players met the Scions of the 7th Dawn, and you learn that this is now led by Minfilia after the passing of Louisoix, who sacrificed himself to save the rest while facing Bahamut. You, the Warrior of Light, start seeing visions of a massive crystal. The Scions explain that this is due to you being blessed with the Echo, a power given to those who are chosen by Hydaelyn, which we are told is represented by the sentient crystal that oversees all life and elements of the world. The particular Echo you possess is the ability to see other people's memories. The Echo also prevents the primals from brainwashing you, or what is known as tempering you. As such, you quickly become the Scion's biggest weapon in subjugating primal summons done by various beast tribes of Eorzea. So cool. Amongst the Scion, only Minfilia had the Echo, but she is not well versed in combat. The story soon reveals that a mysterious bunch of figures have been manipulating the beast tribes, instigating them to proceed with the summons of primals. We are told that these figures are known as Escians. As the story unravels, we also learn that the Escians had a hand in manipulating the Garlean Empire, which even after the time skips from Bahamut is still bent on invading Eorzea. The Empire sees the Scions as their biggest threat and subsequently stormed their headquarters located in the Waking Sands, killing everyone in their path and kidnapping Minfilia. Meanwhile, you, the player, regroups with the grandson of Louisoix, Elfino, as well as Sid, a master engineer, to thwart the Escians' efforts by defeating another primal in the form of Garuda. But after beating Garuda, the Garlean Empire revealed a trump card. A person named Gaius Van Belsa unveiled a project he's been leading, and that is called the Ultima Weapon, which basically eats primals for powers, and is designed to help the Empire rule over Eorzea. After the departure of the Empire from the scene, you, the Warrior of Light, then regroups with the rest of the available Scions to rescue a kidnapped Minfilia. While the rescue mission was a success, you were met with a big twist in the story. Thancred, who was off on his solo mission to investigate the Escians, got possessed by one of the Escians named Lahabria. In a series of tough battles, the Warrior of Light alongside various allies managed to take down the Ultima Weapon and managed to free Thancred from the grasps of the Escian. The Scions then regroups and built a new headquarters at Revenant Toll. One of their first tasks was to aid the refugees arriving from the land of Doma, who have been victims of the Garlean Empire's invasion. Soon after, Moonbreeder, a new character introduced to us, arrives from Sharlayan, announcing she found a way to permanently slay Escians. Her theory panned out in a showdown with the Escian Nabrialis. but unfortunately she lost her life in the exchange. At the same time, you met with the ancient dragon king named Midgard Sommer, who aspires to test your worth. It is during this time the Warrior of Light loses connection to Hydaelyn. Meanwhile, you learn that the city of Ishgard is on the brink of an all-out war with dragons. In light of that, Ishgard forged an alliance with the Scions to enlist their help. Elsewhere, Alphinaud starts a brand new group called the Crystal Braves, with the aspiration to present a unified grand company for all of Eorzea. The Scions are subsequently asked to attend a banquet in Ul'dah by its leader Nanamo. However, Nanamo collapsed from poisoned wine during the banquet, and the culprits set up the Scions to take the blame for it. The Crystal Braves end up betraying the Scions, working with Lolorito to arrest the Scions. In a mad dash to escape, only Alphinaud and the Warrior of Light manages to escape cleanly from Ul'dah. And at the end of A Realm Reborn, they travel to Ishgard to seek asylum together with Tataru. At the start of Heavensward, on arrival in Ishgard, the Warrior of Light and his friends are welcomed by the House of Fortom. Lending your assistance to them on some missions, you find out along the way that the Ishgardian Archbishop, who basically rules Ishgard, is secretly allied with the Ascians, though he tends to betray the Ascians after making full use of them. Concurrently, back in Ul'dah, it is revealed that Nanamo is actually under a deep slumber. She did not actually lose her life as initially feared. She eventually wakes up in the storyline, and during this time, two characters started joining the Warrior of Light on their journey, namely the Azure Dragoon Estinian and Ysayle, whom you know as Lady Iceheart, who leads the heretics that have pledged their allegiance to the dragons. Estinian, Ysayle, Alphinaud, and the Warrior of Light traveled together in search of a resolution to the never-ending war between humans and dragons, whom are led by the dragon Nidhogg. During conversations with another dragon named Hirschvalga, the team learned that the war originated out of vengeance when man broke the peace treaty and alliance between dragon and man. The Warrior of Light and Estinian subsequently defeats Nidhogg in a dramatic battle. However, peace was not achieved, as despite sharing the true origins of the Dragon Song War with Ishgard, Tórdan is still insistent on continuing the war with dragons. And thus, the Warrior of Light eventually defeated Tórdan in another dramatic showdown. And just when you thought all is well, it is revealed that Estinian gets possessed by Nidhogg. With Tórdan out of the picture, Aymeric becomes the new leader of Ishgard. However, the war rages on as the dragons are led by the possessed Estinian. Meanwhile, the Warrior of Light finds all the remaining Scions missing from the banquet in A Realm Reborn, with the exception of Minfilia. And we learned that Minfilia has actually become one with Hydaelyn. The spirit explains to the Warrior of Light that the Ascians are actually serving Zodiac, a being that is looking to fight and defeat Hydaelyn. In a final showdown against Nidhogg, the Warrior of Light triumphs and manages to free the possessed Estinian in a dramatic sequence that see them pry the dragon eyes from his armor and tossing the eyes into the abyss. It is then that Alphinaud's twin sister Alisaie joined the Scions. However, another twist awaits us when we learn that Eubert, the mastermind behind an army of revolutionary fanatics looking to overthrow the Gallian occupation of Gea Urbania, was handed the dragon eyes by an Ascian named Elidibus. In a showdown between the Warrior of Light and Eubert, he summoned an immensely powerful primal Shinryu just before his death, using the dragon eyes. Papalymo proceeded to invoke a powerful imprisoning spell in an attempt to bind Shinryu. Unfortunately, Papalymo had to pay for his life in this attempt. His death resulted in whom we thought was Ida, revealing that she was in fact Lys the whole time. The real Ida died a long time ago, and Lys is now resolved to fight for the independence of her home Ala Mhigo, which is then under Gallian rule, paving the way for the next expansion, Stormblood. The Stormblood expansion starts with the Scions joining the Ala Mhigan resistance and fighting against Xenos Ye Gelvis, the son of the Gallian Emperor. The Warrior of Light then travels with new local Doman friends named Gotsetsu and Yugiri to find the missing prince of Doma, Hien. They manage to find Lord Hien, and the team, together with the newly inspired people of Doma, fought back against the rule of the Gallian Empire. They succeeded in their revolution, and Hien, who is the newly appointed leader of Doma, then joins the Scions in their efforts to liberate Ala Mhigo next. Meanwhile, we learned that Xenos, through Gallian technology, found a way to obtain an artificially made echo. However, that wasn't enough, as the Warrior of Light eventually beats him in a final showdown. Ala Mhigo is finally liberated and the restoration efforts begin. However, another twist in the road here as we uncover that Xenos is still somehow alive. In another shocking revelation, we also learned that the creator of the Ultima weapon, Gaius Van Belsa, that we defeated back in A Realm Reborn, is actually alive, and he's seeking to take down the Ascians who betrayed him. As the Scions have a meeting to discuss the possibility of Ascian involvement in the strange turn of events, half of the Scions experience what seems to be a painful psychic calling, which left them alive but unconscious thereafter. Gaius soon reveals that the Ascians have 3 existing leaders. Firstly, Elidibus is currently possessing Xenos' body. Lahabria, that we met in A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, was subsequently slayed by Tordan, and there was a 3rd Ascian that lies unknown. We also learned that the Empire was working on an incredibly lethal chemical weapon called the Black Rose. In light of the threat, the leaders of Eorzea met with the Gallian Emperor Varys to start peace talks. To everyone's surprise, Varys revealed that the Gallian Empire was actually founded by Ascians. Peace is not an option. The remaining Scions then fell victim to painful psychic callings in their head as well, and they also slipped into an unconscious state. It is then the Warrior of Light hears a voice in his or her head that a certain beacon awaits at the Crystal Tower, which is the Alliance raid from back in A Realm Reborn. That paves the way for the next expansion, Shadowbringers. At the start of Shadowbringers, you seek out the beacon at the Crystal Tower, which then transport you to another world known as the First. In this world, light has engulfed the world, and you learn this is where all the unconscious Scions back home have been summoned to for help. The Warrior of Light then gets acquainted with the Crystal Exarch, whom you learn was the person who summoned the Scions. However, he opted to keep his identity secret at this point. You also get more familiar with Ardbert, the Warrior of Light from the First. However, he failed to keep the world safe and is now roaming the world as a mere spirit. The Warrior of Light during his journey through Shadowbringers gets reunited with the other Scions. The journey takes you on a quest to slay creatures known as Sin Eaters, and the most powerful of Sin Eaters are called Light Wardens. The objective is to return darkness to the world of the First that has been engulfed by the light. Defeating each Light Warden sees the Warrior of Light absorbing the Light Wardens' light, returning darkness to the world. You also learn there's another Minfilia equivalent in the world of the First. She is known as Rin eventually, and joins the Scions on their adventures. She was initially imprisoned in Ilmor before Thancred freed her. Also, during your journey, you are introduced to Emet-Selch, the 3rd Ascian that was referenced by Gaius Van.
Someone said I have hair like Emmett. Someone in my YouTube comments was like, I can't remember exactly what they said. And they're like, hey, of course, you have hair like Emmett. And I was like, I have never even thought about that until right now. Alright, continuing.
And Belsa. It is revealed that Emet-Selch took over the body of Solus Zosgalvis, and Emet-Selch was instrumental in the founding of the Empire. Emet-Selch eventually joins the Scions on their journey, and he offers to help the Scions in a bid to work towards a mutual understanding. After slaying the final Light Warden, the Warrior of Light is overwhelmed by too much light within his or her body, and you start turning into a Light Warden itself. This is when the Crystal Exarch finally reveals his real identity. He is none other than Grahatia, someone the Warrior of Light had actually met in the Crystal Tower Alliance raid side quest at the end of A Realm Reborn. His real plan involved ending his own life and taking in all the light to save the Warrior of Light. However, his master plan was thwarted by Emet-Selch, who has decided at this point to end the truce with the Scions. He kidnaps the Crystal Exarch and disappears. Rin then uses her power as the Minfilia equivalent in the First, and manages to stop the Warrior of Light from transforming into a Light Warden temporarily. The party then journeys to the ruins within the Tempest to find Emet-Selch in Almarot and to save the kidnapped Crystal Exarch. They eventually manage to defeat Emet-Selch in one of the best cutscenes and cinematic sequences to grace video games history. The Scions learn throughout their adventure that the Ascians are remnants of an ancient race that died off, when the original world was shattered into the 13 shards, also known as the Sundering. This disaster caused by the battle between Hydaelyn and Zodiac also divided the souls of all living beings on these shattered reflections. This is also why Ardbert's soul that was wandering in the first shard was able to rejoin the Warrior of Light's soul, because they were initially part of the same whole soul, more specifically the ancient being named Azem. Azem was part of the original convocation of the 14th, and also a friend to Emet-Selch. We also learned in the adventure that Hydaelyn and Zodiac are actually both elder primals, and the ancient beings had a hand in summoning them. The 3 Ascians that Gaius referred to in Stormblood are the only ones who have survived the Sundering with their souls intact, and they were working towards reuniting the sundered shards to restore their civilization. This rejoining process involved the ultimate destruction of all these parallel reflections, or also known as shards. In the aftermath of everything, the Scions learned that Grahatia woke up in the future back in the world we came from, after sleeping in the Crystal Tower for quite some time. In this future, he learned that the Guardian's chemical weapon Black Rose has killed off the Scions. As such, Grahatia journeyed to the First to summon the Scions to the First, not just as a means to save the First that has been engulfed by the light, but also to prevent that terrible future known as the 8th Umbral Calamity in the Source from happening, where all the Scions perished. This sounds puzzling, but is crucial to the storyline, so let me explain. For a calamity to happen, a shard, also known as a reflection, needs to be unbalanced etherically. In the First, this is caused by the elements all being tilted too far towards light or umbral. This actually causes the ether on the source to increasingly tilt towards the same unbalance. This will actually weaken the barrier between the shard and the source. This is the principle that the Ascians were exploiting for purposes of the rejoining. The chemical weapon Black Rose works by halting ether to a standstill. Light ether is actually the force responsible for status and passivity. As such, as the barrier weakens between the First and the source, light that leaks out from the First would enhance the potency of the Black Rose on the source, making it such a potent weapon that caused the 8th Umbral Calamity and leaving death everywhere. Moving on from ethereal theory, we learned that back in the source, Xenos' surviving spirit was able to take back his original body from Elidibus, who has been possessing Xenos' body previously. Xenos then proceeds to kill his father Varys, all in pursuit of a rematch versus the Warrior of Light, whom he lost to in Stormblood. Elidibus, upon finding that Emmett Selk is dead, attempts to oppose the Scions on the First, which culminated in an epic battle on top of the Crystal Tower, where he eventually got beaten by the Warrior of Light. The Crystal Exarch body reaches its limits, however, but not before he was able to transfer his memories into a special medium that was made possible by research on the First. The Scions eventually found a way back to the source safely where they came from, carrying the memories of the Crystal Exarch from the First in a very special medium. The Warrior of Light then headed into the Crystal Tower on the source to awaken Grahatia, who has been slumbering in the Crystal Tower since A Realm Reborn, and proceeded to transfer the Crystal Exarch's memory from the First to the very Grahatia in the source, who then subsequently joined the Scions. It is then revealed that there's a rogue Ascian by the name of Fandaniel, who has allied himself with Xenos. Fandaniel has been erecting towers across Eorzea that has the ability to temper people into fighting one another, and is also draining the Eorzean lands of his ether. In light of this new threat, the city-states started establishing alliances with the Beast Tribes. Estinian also officially joins the Scions. The Eorzean leaders and the Scions attempt to ask Sharlayan for their aid, only to be turned down. And the expansion ends with Fandaniel and Xenos making their final preparation for the showdown in Endwalker. And that marks the tale from before A Realm Reborn to the end of Shadowbringers. Hopefully that sets you up really well for Endwalker. If you found this recap useful, make sure to subscribe to this channel. There will be more Final Fantasy XIV content ahead as Endwalker rolls around. A shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Hell yeah. That was good. Oh man, it's just so much. Like, hearing him talk about it, like, it definitely refreshes my memory. Oh man. I feel so not prepared. I don't know why I feel so unprepared for Endwalker. I don't know what it is.